Um, Hi, everybody. I was joking that obviously I could say you saved the best for last. I said to Doug, I'm like, why am I the last spot? And he was like, because you're a draw and people are going to want to hear you talk. So I'm grateful to all of you who are still here. First of all, I am so grateful for Jim and all that he is doing and the conversations that he is having because they are so important. I love that the research that we have done has also helped support that conversation. In my role coming over, I actually joined Mediabrands about 3 years ago and moved into a new role a year and a half ago where I lead all the health business across Mediabrands, some of the largest health clients in the world. And more importantly, not just leading them, but also trying to push thought leadership. So I moved into a role that is all about driving best practices and connectivity and really trying to create tools and information that better prepare us as partners and marketers for the future. So little did we know all this stuff would be coming, but more importantly, I love that you're talking about that study because it's true, the numbers are incredible. And we've been able to do 3 studies within health since I joined, where we had none beforehand at media trials. And this is the most recent study, which is truly a labor of love. I have to say a huge thank you to the Cargo team because they signed on. It took 9 months, I think, to actually get it done because we know things move a little slow when we're talking about different types of units, right? Creative always takes time to get approved, and there's a lot of people involved when it comes to those discussions, and we have to hear that all out. But more importantly, it has been an incredible journey, and the information is really interesting. So today I get to stand up here, and as Jason said to me earlier, I'm like a scientist today, which is very rare for me because usually I sit on panels or I have a different point of view, but today I'm actually getting to present something that I think is really important and intuitive. So I know we're a little beyond. Jim, you said you were going to take some of my time, but seriously, that's okay because this is all very quick and easy to understand, but I think it's also just helpful as we think about the current political landscape. The timing of this, I was joking when we finally got the research and I was like, oh my God, the timing could not have been better. We have to push ourselves to be more creative as we think about units and video and television and how we can continue to communicate with our patients and physicians in new and different ways. So, is this the clicker? Do I have a clicker? Is this it right here? Sorry, okay, great. So today I'm going to talk about how streaming is evolving, what the expectations are from consumers and people who are patients who are seeing ads, how we are currently delivering, and how we look to create something new in the production of a different type of video streaming ad that allows people to get information more quickly and more simply and easier. So we called it Prescription for Change, optimizing healthcare ads for streaming television success. And we wanted to start with today's expectation. So the research was, and this is legit research, Media Trials goes, they do quantitative, qualitative research, and what's cool about this is in a few slides I'll talk about the fact that we actually use neuroscience, and then actually, so we really got to see what was happening in people's brains versus just people saying, yes, I like this ad, and opting in a more traditional way. So what do people expect from the ads right now? And 90% expect detailed information. 89% expect a clear explanation of the safety information, what is going to happen if I take this drug, and 72% want to learn more. But the reality is that our current ads, we know there's a lot of information in there, are falling short of the expectations. A lot of 80% expect but don't see all of these things that we said are most important to them. And this is obviously really critical as we think about it's our health. We want to know, we want to be confident in the choices that we're making. So we tested a new format, right? And this is what took so long, was the approvals of creating the format and ensuring that everyone was holding hands to feel good enough that we were going to be safe and compliant and provide as much information as possible that will be helpful. So obviously in partnership with Cargo, we created and tested a new format. This is the Canvas ad. It's a video ad that features a branded banner, but also has a QR code, which is now commonplace these days, obviously. And we were able to then see, and as you can see right here, how much simpler this ad is versus more traditional video ads within the pharma landscape. Already, it's just, you can the name pops out. It's just simpler and easier to follow. And the methodology, as I said, was two-pronged, right? We did more traditional controls, at-home testing, more opt-in, and this is obviously to measure the impact of the ad versus a standard ad. But we also did this in-lab neurotesting, and this is where I get to talk like a scientist, as I said earlier. And this was about measuring the subconscious, right? What we're not saying out loud, but what we're thinking, what our eyes are doing, our actual physical behavior and response to the ads. So they looked at 4 different areas, so visual attention, the cognitive load, motivation, and arousal. And what does that mean? So these 4 areas are different parts of the brain. So the cognitive load is that, are they actually getting the information and experiencing the information? Is it making them happy or stressed? Arousal, obviously, are people excited as a function of this? Is this something that is, giving them a positive physical reaction? Motivation, are viewers following, are they having a positive experience or is it a negative experience? Are they going to walk away feeling good or not? And then the visual attention, so following the eyes, which is really interesting. So how did it deliver on expectations? So the ads themselves performed incredibly well. 70% looked at the QR code, which made things a lot simpler, and more importantly, it gave us some positive results to say that this is something that would be really helpful for the future as we think about our brands and communicating and streaming. And what they liked most about the ads is exactly what they didn't find in traditional ads. So it's a kind of nice compliment. It's great, obviously, too, when your research gives you responses that that are positive and help us in a really informative way. But 71% liked the QR code provided, and 66% thought there was better information in the branded banner. And once again, 80% felt like they weren't getting what they needed in a traditional ad. So this is really delivering on those missed expectations. And more importantly, the stronger the targeting, the better performance that we saw, right? There's been a lot of conversation in the past few days over contextual targeting and contextual relevance, and it pays out here as well. So 70% liked the QR code provided, but it became 77% as well when we also looked at patients or family members of people who are suffering from a certain disease state. So we're really seeing these high numbers, and then they liked the information in the branded banner. We said 66, but what's also interesting is look at that big jump at 79%. When we think about that circle of care, the people who are thinking about someone in their lives that is dealing with a condition or a disease, this has tremendous impact too. And then when we compare the branded canvas ad versus a regular, more traditional video ad, there is, if you look at the bottom, there's an aversion. So the red on the bottom, the standard TV has a bit of an aversion, a -2 points below neutral. And the canvas ad, the branded canvas ad, is 4 points above neutral, which is good. Right? We always want to see above, so you can truly see that there is a delta between the two. So hard at work. They also truly boost awareness, right? So when we think about, and this is once again, you can see it broken out in terms of aided awareness and unaided awareness. So unaided recall from the traditional ad was 3 points, and then aided brand awareness was 5 points for these traditional ads, but when we look at the canvas ad, the numbers are exponentially higher. So 7% unaided, and then 17% with aided. So significant improvement in terms of our ability to be more poignant with our consumers and patients. There's also research that we've done here, then useful information that basically allows us to say that it's a little bit more sticky. So when we think of the utility of the ad, 63% for standard ads and a plus 124% for the branded canvas ad. As well as driving familiarity. So a single exposure, which we also know is very hard. We don't normally see significant impact is a function of a single exposure. But what we're seeing here, though, is that through the branded canvas ad, it's a plus 12% versus a plus 4% for the standard ad. So it's 3 times more impactful. And obviously, as I said earlier, it's hard to drive that familiarity with one exposure. People are being exposed to thousands of messages a day. But to even see this significant increase means that what we're doing and exploring the ability to communicate and deliver messaging in different ways is important and impactful. I love this slide because to me, it's about awareness to action, but when we look and compare the standard ads versus the branded canvas ads, first is recall. So it was a 3-point versus a 7-point. The next is actual research intent, right? 7% to an 11%. And the last is intent to talk to doctor, right? Nothing happens in this world unless you're having a conversation with a physician, and that means that you're incredibly leaned in and you are asking questions, and that goes from a 1-point to a 10-point increase. So that's a significant, and even a statistical significant, as I wear my science hat, today to show that this makes significant impact. So as advertisers, how do we take this information to arm ourselves better for the future? So I talked a little bit earlier about the importance of contextual relevance. There's a little bit more information here. So the canvas ads without contextual relevance, because we tested that too, we're still seen as an increase of awareness of 12%. But in the moments that are more relevant and in the content that was more aligned with the ad themselves, it was a 22% increase. So a lot of this stuff is intuitive, but these are really huge increases as we think about what we normally see with creative testing. So this is something to put in your little pocket of playbooks. And then the higher the awareness was correlated completely to the contextual relevance. Everyone wants to be in that right-hand corner of any chart, right? So the more relevant, the higher the awareness, and the agreement that an ad was a good match for the content, right? We have much savvier patients, consumers, HCPs than ever before. Our time continues to be more valuable than ever. So the more relevant we can make our ads and our communications there's more impact and more power in our ability to help and deliver choice to patients and physicians. So I love this slide too. Less is more. We know this forever, right? In the pharma world, we've been talking about the length of ads, what people are actually listening to, what's most relevant, what's most important, what are the key takeaways. So when we simplify the message, you can see this, the colors are actually a heat map as to where the eyes went in the neurological testing. So on the top ad, which is a more traditional ad, right? It's a bit more cluttered. It has all the required information, and you can see that there's different dots, whether it's the green or the red, and all the heat maps everywhere. There's so many different spaces and places that the eye is actually going because there's so much information to look at. The clearer and the simpler ad and the canvas ad below, you can see they've looked at the brand name, what it does, the person, and the QR code. It's far more focused, and it allows for them to really understand what they can do, how do they take this information and start to take action. So implications, right? What does this mean for us? We have to meet streamers' expectations where they are. We have to continue to do research and to push and understand how they actually want to see and engage with advertising. All advertising has to be engaging. It is the expectation of every consumer today. And we have to make it easier. And the easier and the simpler we do that, the better the results that we'll see. We also need to ensure that we are being relevant in terms of the placements of our ads. The contextual relevance is really making a difference. And the reality is that we want to continue to be as efficient as possible, right? We're going to continue advertising. We know the importance of it, but every dollar really counts. And we all know within this space, the measurability of things is even more critical than ever. Having those clear KPIs, the better we can perform against those, and that's going to happen in more contextually relevant areas, the more that we're going to see a positive impact. And then the last piece is, and it's very true, is that there's a fine line between overwhelming and informing. We've been overwhelming for quite some time, and those are legal requirements, and we need to do that, and that's okay. But if we can find a way to channel that information in a more digestible format, the opportunities are limitless. So we have to use clarity in our messaging and simplicity in our messaging so that patients feel that they have greater chance to take an action and there's less of a hurdle in order for them to do so. Thanks, everybody.
All right, what questions do you have?
Do you guys have? Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
I'll try to answer as best as I can, but I can't do all the sciencey ones. So
Well,
they are stable audiences, significant stable audiences, that I promise.
Swathi with Organon, and we did have dinner last night. Didn't have an opportunity to chat with you, but I wanted to dive in a little bit into the study itself. Were you able to test different types of ads in the
Yes.
sense of, okay, so if you could speak to more like when you have box warnings and requirements from our legal department that you need to have the SSI floating through, which is distracting to anybody, and what was that, I guess, how did that play out in results?
Well, we used a few different products, but it was and I'm looking to my cargo friends here too, because they know a little bit more of the specifics, but the reality is we knew that we needed to test different therapeutic areas, and I don't think we did one with a box warning. No. Yes, but I think we need to push the envelope where we can to figure out ways to simplify that. But that's what took so long to get the ads in market to be tested was the approval process. So, and that was the laborious part of it, but I think we still have to do it. And I think maybe the next version includes a black box warning, or maybe a different therapeutic area, because that's the beauty of these studies, is that in my mind, this is like version 1. And how do we continue to say, what did we learn here? And then you get the feedback and you say, okay, we need to include something with a black box warning or a different therapeutic area. Or how do we evolve what that unit looks like? But it was a really thoughtful undertaking to try to get it approved.
That's why I was curious about black box.
Yes, not yet.
Look forward to the next.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Jen Senton with Hearts and Sciences, and I'm sorry, you probably didn't get a chance to speak much last night because I was having much of the conversation with you last night. But quick question on the creative itself. The types of brands that you utilized and the categories, et cetera. Working with the creative agencies, I assume, did you just take the spot and put it into the canvas, or how much back and forth and collaboration with creative did you have to do to get it to a good place?
There was a lot of collaboration, and Cargo really drove that's the great thing about the media trials. We always have a partner who is also invested in this too. Obviously, the research helps them along with our clients and our advertisers, but there was a tremendous amount of back and forth to ensure that we were including the right pieces of information, the right context. It takes a village, as we know, to get any type of creative approved, but I think everyone was engaged across the board.
And were there any roadblocks in doing that with the creative agency in the process, like not getting the full screen or, any type of
What do you
concerns
think?
there?
We did use the TV spot and then wrap it. So we did run into a few roadblocks. I think we switched up things a couple times. I mean, it took us about 9 months to get it through for 3 different brands.
Yep.
But it was also kind of playing around with the different formats. Does it make sense to have the scrolling ISI in the canvas when you have the major statement? Things like that we really tested.
I think it started a lot of good conversation, but more importantly, you're starting from a place of approval when you start with a television ad.
Tyler White, Spectrum Science. I think the dream is always to have that perfect contextual alignment, but obviously in this type of space, it can be pretty challenging. Can you talk a little bit more about what the contextual targeting kind of looked like for this campaign?
I'm gonna. Obviously, we use data, right? And our partners utilize the information and what's in their toolkit to allow us to do that, because that's what we do as, as advertisers. But I'll let Jason talk to us.
So
specifics.
for the pilot brands that worked with us on this, there was a asthma brand, there was a facial aesthetic brand, and then there was a over-the-counter breathe the right strips brand.
Sorry, you didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that. I was trying to describe the category. And for each of those brands, right, we picked moments that were relevant to them in the programming. So for the respiratory brand, right, outdoor moments where there was pollen in the air, or seasonal changes in the sort of foliage or things like that. For the beauty brand, obviously we picked aesthetic moments where there's high glamorous shows like the Housewives and things like that. And then for the nasal strip brand, that we picked snoring moments, moments where there's somebody in a sitcom who's their partner's having a hard time sleeping, and because their partner's up all night or whatever. So the moments that happened in those shows, the ad pods directly after them is what contained these particular brand canvas products, and that's how we sort of got the alignments lined out. And that's a product that Cargo offers. It's called Moments in TV Targeting.
I mean, and you do that the best that you can, right? There has to be a balance, because there isn't going to be a perfect opportunity or contextual relevance every single time. But the more that you can focus on that and find partners and utilize data to the best of our ability to do that, the more impactful we can be.
All right, thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, everybody.